In this episode, arms and angles.
The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, the bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Welcome everyone to episode 540 of the Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular podcast, swolecast, beardcast, broadcast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Happy Saturday, we're in the 540s. Oh. And welcome to another episode hammering Arm Week. We've been talking about getting yoked arms all week, getting yoked like it ain't no joke. And today's question of the day is from Facebook. And it's from Christian, and he asks, is training biceps and triceps with shoulders a good idea, or should they be on a separate gym session? That's a great question, lad. And your middle name is Thor? Is that really? That's awesome. Anyway, should biceps and triceps be trained with shoulders? And this is a perfect question to get started with, as you'll see by the end of the episode. Great question. You can, and you also shouldn't. Let me explain. When you want to build muscle, and you want to build muscle maximally, you are faced with a decision. Get more done in terms of maybe sets and exercises, or focus more. If you do too many different muscle groups, if you are more experienced, if you're still trying to get bigger, if you need to create that kind of overload to spurn more hypertrophy, you need to focus your attention on less muscles. If you only have an hour in the gym, how many sets for each body part can you do if you do a total body workout? How many different sets and reps and all those things can you do with three muscles or three muscle groups as opposed to two? Now, of course, the arms and the shoulders are a unique situation because they're right next to each other. So one, it's a good thing because you're getting all the blood sent to one area. Two, you're using your shoulders for stabilization. A couple muscles like the long head of the triceps and the biceps brachii, they cross the shoulder joint, so different angles are important. So I will leave it to this point, and I'll leave you with this. If you're more of a beginner and you need to build a ton of mass, I would say just group it all together and stick to macro movements. If you're more advanced and you have a lot of definition, you do a lot of volume already, it's probably better that you do shoulders on a separate day and biceps and triceps so you can maximize your volume and your overload to increase hypertrophy. Great question. Thanks for asking. Let's get started with the episode. Today is all about arm angles. So that question segues perfectly into today's episode because angles make a big difference when it comes to biceps and triceps. If you're a beginner and you're still looking to build a lot of mass, I do not recommend you jumping into angle work right away. You don't need to. You have to stick to the basic things. However, if you are building a good amount of muscle mass and you're looking for some kind of change, or you're hitting a plateau and it's been a few weeks since you've seen any real significant change, and you've been measuring and you've been quantifying it, you've been consistent, you've been hitting it hard, I would start playing around with things like incline curls, where your arms start in a little bit of an extended position, or you could do something like prone curls or tricep extensions leaning forward so you get a little more stabilization around the shoulder. That's a lot to absorb mentally if you're listening to this or watching this. My point being is, as you change the angle of the arm, whether your arms start further back behind you, whether they start further to the front, out to the side, rotated internally, externally, you are changing the angle and the starting position, the starting length of the muscle, namely the long head of the triceps and the biceps brachii, the biceps muscle. They both cross the shoulder joint, which means that if you change the angle of the humerus and the shoulder socket, you are changing the starting length of that muscle, which is going to change the mechanical advantage or disadvantage of the muscle. Every single muscle has an optimal resting length and an optimal length when it can produce the most force. When you start changing the starting length of a muscle, let's say the muscle is going to stretch a little bit more in this position for a full range of motion for that one exercise, you are going to take the muscle through a different arc of internal force and where the muscle and what the fiber is going to experience. And that's going to cause different kinds of stress. That's going to cause different kinds of damage. So that's another variable you can add in. That's a lot of physiology, and it's hard to talk you through that and to get you to really understand that. But let me even simplify it on the way out the door, because that's all true. Muscles have an optimal length where it can produce the most amount of force. This is where people start cheating with reps. They start swinging at the bottom and at the top of a movement, because when a muscle is too lengthened or too shortened, it can't produce as much force. That's why when people start to curl, they swing at the beginning, because when a muscle is fully lengthened, it's harder for it to produce force. So people swing to get it started and then can control it through the mid-range of the motion because they're stronger in the mid-range of motion. But then that lengthened portion, that beginning part of the motion, loses stimulus and loses activity. So my recommendation is that if you're a beginner, you do not need to worry about angles. If you're a beginner, you do not need to fuck with all these tiny variables. And there's so much information out there. And I know, come on, you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or an Instagram clip, or you're watching this and you're scrolling through hundreds of fucking things all the time. There's so much fitness content out there, and so much of it is just overblown crap, showing you things to get views, showing you fancy fucking stuff. You don't need fancy. You want to get big? It's boring, it's repetition, and it's smashing it for weeks, months, and fucking years. No one wants to tell you that because it doesn't sell. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. It takes a long fucking time to build muscle, and it takes a lot of basic things that are repetitious, that are boring. So as much as you would hate to eat the same food every day, imagine going to the gym and lifting the same fucking way for years. That's what it takes to build muscle. Your body can adapt. Your body will be stimulated. And if you're just pushing yourself with the basics, barbell curls, even easy bar curls or dumbbell curls, preacher curls, tricep push down, skull crush, the basic ones, you can get absolutely freaking huge without all that fancy shit. Angles come into play, but for more advanced training, and you don't need it if you're still at the beginning and you need to put on a lot of mass. You need to create that big slab of marble like Michelangelo. You need to start with the basic things first. Crush, crush, crush. Angles are for the birds until you're ready to fly. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 540 of The Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular podcast, Swolecast, broadcast, and Beardcast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Thank you so much for joining me on this Saturday for episode 540. Peace, McGee's, deuce, Magoose. I'll catch you tomorrow for Sunday Fun Day, episode 541. Slaters.